Welcome to War of the Stars, a Star Wars podcast, coming to you every week from deep within the Outer Rim, far beyond the westful ice of the Galactic Empire. Join your hosts, John Mark Tolley, Garrett K. Jones, and Brian Karasik, as they discuss the various facets of the saga's lore, characters, review the films, and discuss every tidbit of news coming out of Lucasfilm. And remember, this isn't just my Star Wars, this isn't just your Star Wars, this is our Star Wars.
I have no idea why I'm doing stroking my beard menacingly, but you know,
you kind of have to. You got a little Dooku look going on there.
You do. He's like a young Count Dooku.
Meanwhile, we'll over here twice the bald guy, double the fall.
Hey! It worked for Darth Malgus.
Nothing but respect. I'm trying to be like you, Garrett.
How's everybody doing this evening?
Oh, I am doing
well.
good.
Feeling froggy.
That's right. You know, before we get into the main topic of our discussion of Last Jedi, I think it would behoove us, using big words today, I know, to talk a little bit about the small little. There was some small little Star Wars thing that happened in Japan over the last over this weekend. I'm not sure what it was, but I guess there was some stuff happened. Do you guys know anything about that?
Well, the big news out of Star Wars Celebration 25, which took place in Japan, was that due to a technical glitch, a number between hundreds and thousands of Hayden Christensen autographs were sold twice. Oh. So apparently a block of Hayden Christensen autographs sold out. The system shut it down, and then an indeterminate amount of time later, the system opened those back up. Oh. So there were, safe to say, there were hundreds of Star Wars fans there who were there to get a Hayden Christensen autograph and didn't. And now I'm here to tell you, I've been to 2 celebrations. I went to 17 in Orlando, 19 in Chicago. I had a good deal. I went to both of them with a media pass. I paid for my airline ticket with Delta points. I paid for my hotel with Marriott points. So it cost me a total of $11 to go to both of them. That said, you cannot go to Star Wars Celebration and bet your entire experience on one thing happening. Yeah. Because if that thing doesn't happen, now you're out thousands of dollars and you're going to be mad about it for years. Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. And I have seen the effects of that both in the past and in the present, where people literally said they bought this ticket to go to Japan to get a Hayden Christensen autograph, and 20 minutes after they were supposed to get it, they got an email that said your autograph has been canceled due to a technical error. We'll be refunding your money. Okay, so you get the $125 back. You don't have to pay for the autograph, but you did pay for airfare to Japan, lodging in Japan, and 4 days at Star Wars Celebration, which is upwards of $3,000 to $5,000 depending on what airline you fly. So,
and where you stay,
and where you
there are some really nice, decent, cheap hotels in Tokyo that you can spend maybe $50 a night on.
Yeah, gotta watch out for those hotels.
But they are very specific, and they're pretty much just it's a capsule. You might as well.
If you go to a Japanese hotel and there is not a human being in the lobby, you are not in what they call a reputable hotel. I went to Japan. Okay, so I was, and folks have been listening for a little while. I was stationed in Japan for 4 years with the Navy. I'm familiar with the country. I also went back to Japan 14 times as a civilian working on flight simulators for Lockheed Martin. I am down with Japan. However, there are some things that no amount of familiarity will not help you with. And one of them was I booked into a hotel just outside of Yokota Air Base. Price was right, $48 a night. Oh, this is great. Friends, let me tell you about a tradition in Japan called the Love Hotel. Yeah. Now, this is a wholesome industry which is built up around the tradition that often young Japanese married couples will live with the in-laws for a number of years after the wedding. And not to stereotype, but a lot of interior walls in Japanese houses are made of paper. And so young Japanese couples who have recently been married are separated from mom and dad by a paper screen. There's some times that you might want to have a private discussion with your spouse. And so an entire industry of hotels has sprung up to facilitate these private conversations you might want to have with your spouse.
With soundproofing as good as a recording studio.
Yes, soundproofing and sometimes props. So the way it works, like the Japanese have really pioneered the industry of coin op. So I got to my hotel, and mind you, like I'm totally unaware of like what I've booked. I'm just like, oh, cool, Price is Right. It's 2 miles from base. That's perfect. So I take a cab from the airport to the hotel, and on the way, my cab driver via Google Translate tells me, this is not a reputable hotel. A businessman such as yourself should not stay here. And I'm just like, I don't speak enough Japanese to change my booking at this point, so we're just going to go ahead and power through this. But seriously, guys, you get to the hotel, and there is nobody in the lobby. What there is a large a wall of rooms, pictures of rooms, and you choose your room. Do you want it to be a hotel room, a boxing ring, a cave, a hotel room? Like they have all kinds of like a spaceship. I booked the spaceship. It's cool. I was like all black gloss marble and neon lighting. It was great. You pay with a credit card, and a key comes out of a vending machine, and only after that key has been distributed does the elevator become accessible. Takes you to the hotel. It was great, but let me tell you, no eye contact in the lobby in the mornings. I'm just like, hey, how's it go? Oh, nothing. Okay, all right. Oh, is that your dog? No, all right, that's good. Yeah, so it was a good time. So that said, Japan, yeah, you can certainly, and there are perfectly reputable businesses, as you mentioned, Garrett. If you want to stay in a capsule and spend $50 a night, that's great. But the autograph, back to the topic of celebration, the autograph thing is a serious issue for a lot of people. Like they've been doing Star Wars Celebration for a long time. This is a shortcoming that should have been corrected, and it wasn't the only one too. They had a few different ones where a number of people reported they got. And the guy posted, he got a photo op with 2 different characters, paid $250 for it, and his eyes were closed, and they wouldn't let him retake it. I'm like, you're paying $250 for 30 seconds. You can let me retake this picture, right? Like the driver's license, the DMV showed me the picture before they said is that okay? And that only cost me $30. I'm paying $250 for a picture with 2 Star Wars actors, and they're getting 100% of that money. I think you should let me see the picture, and if my eyes are closed, retake it. But that's an argument anybody could have. The overbooking of Hayden was a problem, and of course, it's not on Hayden. He has nothing to do with that. I'm told Hayden is always late in his autographs because he makes eye contact. He has a conversation, and then there's other actors who, for no criticism at all, they will not look at you. You just like put it down on the table, they sign it, you move along. They're writing their name for 6 hours. I don't fault them for that. Yeah. But something else that they can't be faulted for. Diego Luna had a session of I think it was Saturday. They said he had an autograph session that began at 12:30. People didn't wait in line for 2 hours to get their autograph at 12:30. And at 12:35, they bring Diego Luna out on the main stage for a 20-minute interview. Like, guys, like we're not, we're here. We're not here for free, like this. But all that said, I think as a limited level Star Wars Celebration veteran, you got to go to Star Wars Celebration to see people. Don't go to buy things. Don't go to meet celebrities. Go there to be a part of the community. You'll never be dissatisfied. If you go there to, I got to get this autograph. I want to buy this one thing. A friend of mine in Chicago, all he wanted was to buy, like, there was the Ahsoka art book, The Art of Ahsoka. And it was a special edition cover, and like it was autographed by the artist or whatever. And the first 2 days he could not get it. Like by the time he was there, he walked in the door. There's already a 2-hour long line at the booth. And an hour and a half later, they're sold out. But he was able to get the book. I gave him a media pass that I had from my other outlet, and but being able to get in there at 8 instead of 10, that's the only way he could get it done. How do you guys feel about Rory McCann being cast as Baylan Skoll? I'm a fan. I am too. I gotta say, Ray Stevenson is a big hero. This is the first time I've seen it. They misspelled Ray Stevenson in this article.
Did they really?
That's not how you spell Ray.
Oh my God.
R-E-Y.
I mean, that's how you spell Ray Skywalker, but come on.
I chalked that up to
AI.
IGN just not having IGN just not having good quality assurance.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like Rory McCann. He was awesome as the Hound in Game of Thrones.
Oh yeah.
He was awesome in Hot Fuzz.
He was. I love him in that. He's so funny. Like
I
he
didn't
doesn't
know it was
do
him at
anything
first.
other
I was
than
like,
yell.
wait, that face looks familiar. But yeah, I loved Ray Stevenson all the way back in Rome. I've just loved him in everything he's ever been in. And he was a voice of one of the Mandalorians. I think we discussed. He and Kevin McKidd kind of reprised their partnership by doing a pair of Mandalorians in Clone Wars. But that should be good. I confess I am not caught up on Ahsoka, so I've got to finish that show out. I find Sabine Wren to be insufferable, and I get tired of watching closed captioning say all day long. There's 5 to 10 minutes of HM period in every episode, it seems, and I had to wander off on it.
I am excited to see Hayden Christensen back because I liked what he did in the first season.
Yes.
That was a lot of fun.
Spoilers for a TV show that came out 3 years ago, guys. Come on.
I know, right?
Can't help it.
Well, what do you think about the other? Oh, that's a good picture. That's cool.
Is that Timothy Chalamet?
No. Timothy Chalamet looks like he's underfed.
That looks severely doctored. That's like if Clone Wars became more realistic, but I'll take it.
What do you guys think about the right there, Sigourney Weaver joining Star Wars?
I don't know what they have on her to bring her into this, but
what do they need? This makes her a part of every Star-related franchise she's Avatar, Alien, Futurama. Like, what hasn't she done at this point? I think maybe Star Trek. She's in real contender for the Michelle Yeoh spot.
Yeah.
And she's done Marvel. Hello.
What's that?
Who's she doing Marvel? I forget.
She was in the Defenders.
Oh. You know who she was in Futurama, of course.
I don't remember.
She's the voice of the Planet Express ship, which is really funny considering.
That's right.
When the ship and Bender are dating.
Boy. Not cool.
Yeah. Oh, and then of course the
that's
I'm not sure how I feel about this.
I need to see a Starfighter Ken doll immediately.
Because from what they've said, this is going to be set 5 years after the last movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so, he even said, he's like, it's brand new setting, brand new characters in a brand new era. Like, this
just don't give me the Yuuzhan Vong. I'm open-minded, but only to a point.
Well, it's going to be interesting because Sean Levy is directing it.
Yeah.
The last couple of projects he's worked on, I've enjoyed. I like the work that he did for the third Deadpool movie. Free Guy was a lot of fun.
Yes.
I don't remember what else he's worked on, but the last couple of movies that I've seen that were done by him, I enjoyed them. So this
is that going to be in the same vein? Because if you're talking Free Guy, you're talking Deadpool 3, you're talking movies that have more of a comedy bend.
I mean, if you put Ryan Reynolds, it's not Ryan Reynolds.
Well, Ryan can do comedy. I mean, we just watched Fall Guy, and that was hilarious.
That's a good movie.
Yeah, that was hilarious.
Aaron Taylor Johnson's so good in that. I'm impressed with that guy.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Sean Levy, keep in mind the last 3 films that Sean Levy has worked on have all been Ryan Reynolds projects, but he worked on one of the Night of the Museum movies. He directed Real Steel with Hugh Jackman, so we know he can do
a surprisingly good movie.
Yeah, he did. He directed Date Night with Tina Fey and Steve Carell. So while he does have comedy,
Steve Carell, Steve Martin,
Carell. That was Carell.
Oh, okay. Oh, you know what? That's funny. That's a very, very close remake of a Steve Martin movie that had Diane Lane in it.
Yeah. He also directed, nobody really liked it, but the 2006 Pink Panther film starring Steve Martin, speaking of.
No, they did not like it.
And then when Disney did the Jet Jackson movie in 2001, he directed that.
Missed me entirely.
Well, yeah. By that point, you were, in the Navy.
I was almost out of the Navy.
But so I mean, so he's got some experience doing a mix of action, a mix of comedy, working with solid cast. Like, for what he's worked with, what he's worked on, like he's works with some serious talent. So having him helm this particular project, I think, is a good thing. I'm still not sold necessarily on Ryan Gosling. Like, he just is basically Ryan Gosling and everything.
But
there's a lot of actors that are like
Clooney
that
too, and I mean Sigourney Weaver is not far from that either. If you like that, it's fine. Yeah. I'm glad it's Ryan Gosling and not Ryan Reynolds, because based on Free Guy and the Deadpool franchise, I think Sean Levy and Ryan Reynolds, you just can't do any other kind of movie. Now, after 5 seasons of Lower Decks, I would be happy to see a comedy Star Wars franchise, but not that. I want to see this period of the galactic history taken seriously.
Now, I will say, when I first heard the announcement that they were doing Starfighter, my first thing is that I feel sorry for, I can't even think of her name. She was the director that was attached to the Rogue Squadron movie.
Oh yeah, was it Catherine Bigelow?
Was it? She did. I know she did the first Wonder Woman.
The good Wonder Woman.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Patty Jenkins.
Yeah. Oh. Because the whole story behind it was so cool, was the fact that her dad had been an Air Force pilot in Vietnam and had been in dogfights, had been one of the last actual dogfights in the Air Force. And she'd been wanting to make the best fighter pilot movie ever. That was her thing. She wanted to make the best fighter pilot movie ever. And she wanted to combine her love of Star Wars and war movies to make basically what would have been the Star Wars equivalent of Top Gun.
I'd be okay with that.
Like yeah. And have it for a movie like that, to have it set in the rebellion era. Like, I think would have been really cool. So it'd be interesting to see like what we see with this movie.
It's interesting though.
I'm excited. I'll be in costume. I'll be there.
Oh yeah.
That will be in theaters a month after Star Wars Celebration Los Angeles. So it'll be interesting to see the hype leading up to that. Because I gotta say, the last couple Star Wars Celebrations have not had a movie to promote.
Yeah.
No,
let's talk about that a little bit. The fact that, because isn't Grogu and Mandalorian Grogu, that's the movie, right?
Yeah, that's coming out next year.
So we got 2 movies.
Honestly, enough with that franchise. Like, I get it. Okay, there's merch involved, but it's like Star Wars now is just Mandalorians. Like, you look at Celebration cosplay pics, like 30, not less than 30%, more often 70% are just Mandalorian cosplay. Beautifully done, but there's more to the galaxy than that, and that's really, it's just, I feel like it's eating up all the oxygen in the room.
True.
Yeah, I just Googled images of that, and there's this one on Reddit, and it's just a bunch of Mandalorians posing with variations of the Darksaber with someone dressed like Vader.
That said, cosplay contest best in show was a Shogun Darth Vader, and it's unbelievable.
Yes,
good for him.
Nice.
I actually know the woman who won best in show in Chicago. She did a Darth Plagueis, which was unbelievable. She's a Finnish artist who is in the 501st out there. It's great.
Oh, no. There is a cosplay here of General Grievous that is just fantastic.
I haven't seen it in action. I've seen there is a well-known video of a Grievous where it's essentially a wearable puppet. The guy's wearing, or the artist is wearing a black like bodysuit, and
right. That's the one I'm looking at.
Yeah, the Grievous cosplay is a puppet that's like 6 inches in front of his body. It's just moving. It's great. There were some really impressive droid cosplays that are from what I've seen. There, someone did the droid from the Solo movie, L33T maybe.
Oh yeah.
forgettable movie, forgettable droid, but it's really good work. Well done. I gotta say, my favorite cosplay for droids of the most recent films is a friend of mine. His daughter made a C-3PO, and in the kiln, the head plate came out wrong. It came out gloss black. And he was like, "That's amazing. We need to make the whole suit like that." And so she is 000 from the Dr. Aphra comics.
That's cool.
Nice.
And which, for those of you unfamiliar with the comic books, go read them. We'll wait.
Yeah.
But 000 is a protocol droid who's black chrome instead of gold, and he is a much shorter.
Jumping back on the topic of movies really quick here. One of the things I noticed is from the reports is that nothing at Celebration 2025 mentions anything about the Rey Solo picture. Nothing about it. There's nothing about the process. Like no announcements. And like when they first announced it a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, in fact, like at D23, that was a big deal. We've heard nothing of it. They've hemorrhaged writers for one.
I might be cynical, but anymore, I don't trust a movie announcement until I'm sitting in the theater.
Yeah.
I mean, they have starting with Rian Johnson's trilogy, and the Game of Thrones guys trilogy. Like it's been a long time since they announced the
Simon Kinberg trilogy.
Yeah. I'm a little more for the next two movies. Because even when they did the announcement with Ryan Gosling and Levy, they said that they had started pre-production and they were planning on shooting. So with something like that, when they're saying we're starting pre-production, we're shooting in October, that gives me a little more.
I'd like to be optimistic, but I remember when Lord and Miller were starting pre-production on the Solo movie, and then they just remade the whole freaking movie.
Yeah, but at least they came out with a movie.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
If
I'm honest, I have also complained that it came out too soon after the most recent movie on this podcast. So maybe I should just shut up and wait to see what they come out with.
Speaking of movies, we need to get into our review of Last Jedi.
Yes.
I want to say I have an unusual and perhaps unpopular opinion of this movie in that I think The Last Jedi is a fine movie that I did not care for. Like I saw it, same as I always do. I saw it 3 times in the theater, in costume, 2 of them. And I enjoyed it, but it was a little bit too piecemeal.
Yeah, I felt very disjointed.
It's a couple different movies at once. I find that many of the objections to, and we've covered this a little bit in the past, but many objections that the fan base had to this film are almost exactly like things that people completely forgave in Empire Strikes Back. But
I remember you mentioning that before in
a few things that just do not rub me the right way. One of them is when they're infiltrating the Supremacy. Finn is just wearing an officer's uniform. Like, he has got to be one of, if not the most wanted deserter in the entire First Order. He doesn't even cover his face. He goes on board with BB-8, one of the most wanted droids by the entire First Order. BB-8's disguised as an upside-down trash can, and the only member of the First Order who detects either of these things is freaking BB-9. Why isn't he running the show? And that sort of thing, like, it makes for comedy, and like BB-8's bumping into stuff because he can't see through the trash can. But this is like if somebody sneaks up, drives a car. I can't think of a real world analogy. It's inexcusable to me that Finn would not wear a disguise. BB-8 would wear that disguise, and they essentially get away with it. Yeah. So. But there's a few things in there. I liked Benicio del Toro's character. I think he was a good addition. It gets the story along there, but like there's Poe Dameron kills more members of the Resistance than Kylo Ren. There's a lot to dislike about the film. But if you go into this movie, I think if you go into this movie not expecting anything, which is impossible for a Star Wars fan, taken on its own, this movie's a fine movie. I think it tells a fun story. It's enjoyable. I didn't enjoy it, but I did see it 3 times, and I don't hate it. I don't think that people should be harmed physically for it, which when it came out, that was a minority opinion in the circles I frequented. Anyway, that's my take. What do you guys think?
So from the story perspective, it introduces a lot of cool ideas. Like I like, on the one hand, I like the idea of Luke feeling like, not necessarily feeling sorry for himself, because like he should have been way more confident than that. But at the same time, like, that is not necessarily outside of his personality. I mean, we saw how he was as a young man, and he constantly felt sorry for himself. He constantly complained. So to have everything well, hold on, let me finish. To have everything going right for a spell, and then all of a sudden, Ben Solo turns on him over a mistake, like that. What that does is it, like, I can see him turning inward like that. However, being so despondent that he completely gives up on being a Jedi and serving the galaxy, especially in light of what we know of from season 2 of The Mandalorian, and what we saw of him in the couple of episodes of Book of Boba Fett, like it feels like he should have been way, way better prepared for something like that. Yeah. However, like, I don't know. I some of the things that frustrate me is that we get more of the same Mary Sue over empowerment in Rey, more so than we did before. And it's like, I think from a dialogue perspective, the thing that really frustrated me the most was that she's just this giddy little schoolgirl. It's great. Okay, yeah, you're trained to be a Jedi, but like, you're in your 20s. Act like you're in your 20s, not like a 5-year-old. Like, when she gets all goofy, about feeling the Force, that's how a 5-year-old acts. Not someone who's actually trying to become spiritually in tune with the greatest power.
A choice was being made there by the actor, I think, yeah.
And by the director, I think. But I
do you think, I don't want to make excuses for it, but that sort of goes along the lines of Poe Dameron doing the little phone call prank with General Hux at the beginning.
That was stupid.
Yeah.
I don't care for that either.
You talk first. Do I talk first?
Do you think that Ryan Johnson, that he had this idea of when they were coming up with the movie and doing everything, that he said, "You know what would be cool? You know what would be cool? You know what would be cool?" And he had all these cool ideas, like, "Hey, this would be cool if this guy did this. This would be cool if Rey did this. This would be cool if Luke did this." And then they try to mash all these cool ideas together into a coherent movie.
Well, the problem is none of it was coherent.
Yeah, that's the problem. Yeah, that's why I put air quotes for.
It's just
the concept of a starship running out of fuel and then stopping is new to me. That's a new part of Star Wars. Like, you're in space. If you run out of fuel, you lose thrust. You don't lose momentum.
Yeah,
and I can forgive like a little bit of sci-fi stuff, like, okay, there's laser swords and telepaths and space magic, but like, you got to work with me a little bit. Like, thermodynamics doesn't change just for the plot point, and the fact that running out of gas and stopping is such a major driver of the film's conflict. It's disappointing, and I don't want to go all Neil deGrasse Tyson on you, but it's simply not how it works.
Well, yeah, wasn't there a law that says an object in motion will stay in motion?
Yeah,
well, those are just guidelines anyway. Newton's third suggestion of thermodynamics. I don't know. And there's a few things that I'll take, like the bombs in space. That makes perfect sense to me. It's not well explained, but if you think about it, I think it works. But there's just, as you said, Garrett, it's not coherent. It's a little too disjointed for me. Mm-hmm. I think what would be cool is a strong, you make a strong point there. And I really think that is what happened.
Yeah.
I was most impressed with, they did seem to carry on the storyline of Rey just not being from anywhere. And I really liked the concept.
I did like, and
I
that's
was
one thing
excited about that. Like the concept of the Force not needing to be hereditary was.
And I wish they would have kept that.
They completely ditched it in the last one.
It would have been super helpful if they had kept it.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think you've heard me rant about this before, but for newcomers to the podcast, I'm going to go again. At the time of the prequels, there's 10,000 Jedis, and we know for a fact that only 2 of them reproduce. There's no reason to think that the Force is hereditary. And now all of a sudden, as soon as Vader says, "I'm your father," it's like the whole fandom forgot that. And now everybody has to be somebody's child.
Yeah.
I don't care for it.
And
I don't think it's the way the Force was set up to work, and I don't think it makes for a good story.
Not to jump the timeline a little bit, but I think if they had kept Rey as being a nobody, then in the next movie, when she takes the name Skywalker, it would make more sense. For me, at least.
Say more.
What's that?
Say more about that. I want to hear more.
Yeah,
I'm curious on your logic.
Yeah, because when you find out, not spoiler alert, that she's a Palpatine, instead of being what I think they should have done, and we can, this isn't that movie, but is for her to go, you know what? Yes, my grandfather was the most evil man in the galaxy, but I'm going to redeem that name. Instead, she's just like, you know what? I'm a Skywalker now. And it didn't make any sense. Yeah, but again, that's for next week. That's for next month.
I did want to touch on Luke's behavior following the subsequent to the fall of his order. I think he was less upset about Ben turning on him and more upsetting about him letting Ben down.
Yeah.
And I have to say that is a good part of the movie when Luke is retelling the pivotal moment when he almost killed Ben.
Yeah.
You see that story in a very Rashomon way. You see it from Ben's point of view where Luke looks like a ferocious monster, and you see it from Luke's point of view where Luke looks like a hesitant and reluctant, do-gooder. But I gotta say, if you're sneaking up on someone to kill them in their sleep, I think using a lightsaber is not the way to go. It's the loudest, brightest weapon you have.
Yeah.
Maybe just stick to a knife there, Luke. I mean, come on.
A
Force choke. Well, we know you can do it.
Well, that, and I think with Luke also, you have this idea of him almost feeling like he fell into the same trap that the Jedi had before, of their own hubris, of thinking that I'm going to be different. This time is going to be different. And then the same thing happened. That's what happened to Jedi initially, was they thought they were untouchable. And it's almost like Luke kind of was starting to fall into that same trap of, well, I'm going to do things different, and this time things are not going to be the same. And yeah.
Well, we're deviating off Last Jedi, but I think it's worth touching on. We see Luke do that in The Mandalorian when he absolutely hardline insists that Grogu cannot have the Beskar armor and be a Jedi. Well, why? Didn't you see that's why the Jedi fell, was that sort of rigid adherence to dogma? And I don't think that's I think Luke should have learned that lesson already. I do think that Luke followed in the footsteps of the only 2 living Jedi he ever met, both of whom went into hiding on a distant planet to essentially exile themselves after their own failure. Mm-hmm. It's kind of hard to say, like, oh, they shouldn't have done that, or like it's not true to his character. He has literally 2 Jedi who do to learn from.
Who did exactly?
They both did exactly the same thing. So it's kind of what the Jedi
both
do.
Were very, very much not necessarily. Yoda wasn't quite as dogmatic, but Obi-Wan was very much.
No, Yoda was just as dogmatic, because for the longest time he was refusing to train Luke just because of an age issue.
Yeah.
And
you don't have a long line, Yoda. Come on, open the door.
We see that Luke doesn't go exactly that route, but at the same time, he's incredibly caustic. He's incredibly ambivalent about the whole process because he doesn't feel like there should be a point to it. And it's like, no, the time of the Jedi shouldn't be at an end. The Jedi should be stronger more now than ever. Just because you had one setback, doesn't mean you give up.
Pretty serious setback, and it took Luke 28 years to get there. It took the Jedi previous 1,000. So, it's I can kind of see why he might what, never mind. But in fairness, it worked. Like he went off into exile. He did leave a way to be found, albeit a bit needlessly challenging, Scooby-Doo puzzle style. But Rey, from what we see from the movies, Rey does accomplish what the Force needed to be accomplished, in that she found him, she trained with him, and she founds a new Jedi Order.
Yeah.
One of the things that really kind of annoyed me is the fact that he shows up, or that when Rey shows up in the movie on his island, he sees her fly in on the Millennium Falcon. There's no way he didn't see that happen. So why did he
not a lot of spaceships to? Oh, I didn't even notice that one.
But how long? I mean, why does he have to wait almost half the movie before he asks, "Where's Han?" She shows up. There's no Han Solo flying the Millennium Falcon. Nobody shows up. Yeah. Nobody. And, I mean, his oldest friend should have been like, "Luke, what you doing? Why are you being a chud about this whole thing?"
Is it explained explicitly in the film or just in the book that Luke has shut himself off from the Force?
It's mentioned in the movie briefly. Okay. It's like throwaway dialogue.
There is a question to be asked as far as how Luke did not detect Han dying.
Well, again, my whole thing is that he had, at some point he would have had to have known that Han wasn't piloting the Millennium Falcon. Why did he wait until Chewbacca shows up and literally knocks down his door?
Valid question. Yeah. And not one that is answered.
Well, if Mark
other than
ever gets on our podcast, we'll have to ask him.
He's a big fan of the show. I will go back to the well of The Simpsons. There's an episode where Homer is in prison, and there's a big burly guy with a shaved head who's playing a harmonica. And Homer says, "What are you in for?" And the guy says, "Atmosphere." And that's kind of why Luke waited that long, was like, we need to time this movie out this way. That's kind of akin to why we had to spend 35 minutes in a freaking casino to go pick up the wrong guy.
Yeah.
Which I will say, let me touch on this because I really like how they treat astromechs. Astromechs in Star Wars are comedy gold for me. I don't know if they're doing it on purpose, but astromechs are like this magical box that always has exactly the tool that is necessary. And we see that a little bit in the opening scene when BB-8 is fixing the starfighter as it's flying with like 17 little arms. It comes in. Who built all those little extendable arms that come out of there? Much less who makes a coin launcher. Like what's inside of any astromech is just a magical room of requirement as far as that goes. Whatever mechanism needs to exist exists. How BB-8 accepts coins is amusing to me, and how he thereafter has a mechanism to launch them out at velocity, also funny to me. I like that. And I think we should acknowledge that the drunk little alien who's feeding coins into BB-8 is voiced by Mark Hamill as well. Got to go there with that.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Nice.
But and a lot of people, I forget, what's the name of that planet? It escapes me. The casino place. Camino Royale.
No, hey.
Nothing. That's pretty good. Like off top of the dome there.
No, it was Canto Bight.
Canto Bight.
Canto Bight. Yeah.
So I found that an interesting scene out of context of this film. I didn't need it to be in the movie. I would watch a show about it. That right there, that's a good episode of a television program. But I did not need to see all that stuff. And I did like DJ's lecture on Don't Join. And I liked how, we see, you guys know I like the gray area of the good and the bad. Like good guys are also fighting war, yes, they're the rebellion, but they are killing people and we using weapons. And I think that sort of thing is interesting to discuss. They're not just all holy paladins who, never have to kill anybody.
Yeah.
Are you guys familiar with the concept of the Disney death?
No.
So the Disney death is what happens when a villain who absolutely must die in order for the conflict to be resolved dies via natural causes after a fight with the hero. Examples of this are Gaston dying in Beauty and the Beast. He dies from what? A fall. The Beast does not kill him. They are fighting. Gaston slips. Gaston dies of the fall. The hero triumphs, but the hero is not a murderer. Same things happens in The Lion King. Scar dies of a fall into a pit of hyenas who kill him. Simba attempts to save him on the way down. So there's that moment of where the villain dies, but the hero isn't the one that killed him. You get the audience gets satisfaction, but the hero's reputation is preserved. I don't care for that. Like sometimes you got to get your hands dirty to get the galaxy clean. So I think that was an interesting talk we had with DJ. I thought that was cool, and I like Benicio del Toro in anything. But that said, Canto Bite was unnecessary, and I wish we could just one time see a new alien species that doesn't have a monkey face. Like, there's no possible way that the mouth of the 5 years could eat enough food to sustain an organism of that size. It's frustrating to me as a horse owner. So anyway, there's a lot to like about this film. But you got to look real hard.
Yeah. And do you think that the whole Canto Bite, you mentioned how this, I said, do you think that with the whole Canto Bite, that's another example of, I think it was you, Brian, said earlier about this seeing like several different movies kind of made into one movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like that seemed like an entirely separate movie that had
it's like they took three. The Empire Aftermath trilogy reminds me of that too. The Aftermath is a trilogy of books containing one good book spread out over 3 mediocre books for me. And conversely, The Last Jedi is 3 good movies from which they have taken the worst parts and made a mediocre movie out of it.
No, I think you're correct on that one.
Yeah.
I did like Admiral Holdo's approach. I thought that was a really neat scene. I think that they kind of bent over backwards to kind of hit it right on the nose, which, by the way, you got to read a little bit into the backstory and the books and all this stuff. But I'm going to say, if you hadn't noticed, Admiral Holdo is a non-binary character, and she destroys the First Order flagship, which is a white ship, and it is named the Supremacy. So,
crying out loud!
Thank you.
I never put that together.
Now, I'm not saying they did it on purpose, but those facts exist. Like, we learn that Holdo is non-binary in the Princess Leia book. We meet her younger, and Leia says she's mostly sticking with I'm really just down with the fellas. And Holdo says you're missing out or you're limiting yourself. Like, there's a line where Holdo is like clearly down to clown, but I think maybe it's not too on the nose if you guys didn't pick it up, but I definitely noticed that.
Yeah.
I will say there are a couple of scenes that I like that just because of how visually striking they are.
Mm-hmm.
First and foremost, what we're looking at here on the graphic with the planet of Crate and the skimmers dragging across that oxidized salt.
Yeah.
Great visual because it almost looks like they're dragging blood across the across
that was cool. Seeing the new version of basically the new AT-ATs. I can't remember what they were called.
AT-MTs. I don't know.
AT-MT. Yeah.
The other two that stood out to me is the one where Rey is trying to figure herself out, and she has that moment where she's catching her reflection, like the infinity mirror.
Yeah,
ATM6.
That was a really, really neat effect, but unfortunately it went nowhere.
Yeah.
And then the aftermath of Holdo going against the dreadnought and destroying it, like that visually, it looked beautiful.
Oh yeah.
But it brings up a lot of questions of why haven't we started using weapons that can be automatically targeted against starships and do exactly that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, that reminds me. I saw a meme recently that said, "For every robot that becomes evil, there's a roboticist in its past that installed red LEDs just in case." Right? Like it seems
accurate.
A choice was made there. That reminds me, in Return of the Jedi, when we see it in Jabba's palace, they're branding that one robot. They're branding his feet,
Yeah.
and the droid is screaming in pain. Somebody installed pain receptors. Like what? Why? What's that for?
Yeah.
Because that roboticist is a sadist.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Which is to say, I believe in the novelization, there's some explanation that what we now call Holdo maneuver had not been used before, because the ship would not do it for an automated guidance. Like that, it had to be why the ship needs that to happen. Don't quote me on that. I'm not sure it's in the book, but I've read that explanation somewhere.
A tracking and lock system.
Yeah, exactly. But maybe it's expensive. I don't know. Like destroying that Holdo's flagship might not be the most cost-effective way, but you got to do what you got to do. I did like to touch on the skimmer scene. The effect of the white salt turning red under pressure set up a really nice foreshadowing for something that I did not notice, which is that Luke does not leave footprints.
Yeah.
Oh.
And we pointedly see Luke's feet on the ground. Like the camera goes, look at it's like the Office cameraman is like wants you to see something, right? Just point it. And I thought it was Luke, or like, oh, look at us, like he's even this far out from his last lightsaber duel, he's still positioning himself to. Nope, we're supposed to see he's not leaving footprints. He's not casting a shadow. And I thought that was a really cool touch and surprised me. That was my favorite part of the movie, was the reveal.
That's a very subtle moment.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And the scene between Luke and Leia in the cave, that was a really but I was just going to say, have you guys seen the latest Lego Star Wars movie where everything gets turned around and everything gets flipped, and there's a scene where they're in Battle of Crate,
the dark Falcon,
where the resistance soldier kind of licked in the movie, licks and says salt, and this one he licks and goes pepper.
I have not seen that, but that's funny.
Yeah.
Where is that? Is that streaming on Disney Plus, I assume?
It is. We have it. Me and Lily, my daughter, have been watching it.
I love the Dark Falcon playset.
Yeah.
It looked great. Although the Darth Jar Jar really turned me off, because I'm so torn on that whole theory. Like I just don't know. I don't know.
The Lego Star Wars have been rather good. There's one where Rey goes back in time and tries to change stuff, and you have one scene where like every Star Wars character that's ever lived is just dumped into Tatooine for this big battle, and you have like 5 different Obi-Wans just saying hello there to each other, and
that's funny.
Yeah, it's really.
Did I ever tell you guys my worst Rey's parentage theory ever? Okay, so you're familiar with the well between the worlds that is introduced in Rebels, where okay, so bear with me. Rey goes back in time. Force Ghost Ezra teaches Rey how to use the well between the worlds. Rey goes back in time to meet still alive Ezra, wears Sabine's helmet and seduces him, and then she uses the well between the worlds to return to her own past and give birth to herself.
Wait, what? Run that by me again.
Okay, here's my theory. And I didn't. I wanted to come up with the most convoluted theory ever. Rey is taught by Force Ghost Ezra how to use the well between the worlds. Rey, at the age of 23, uses the well between the worlds to go back to the period of Rebels, where she steals Sabine's helmet, puts it on, and dressed as Sabine, seduces still alive Ezra, becomes pregnant, and then uses the well between the worlds to return to her date of birth and gives birth to herself.
I don't like that.
No, it's bad.
That is bad juju, kill you fast.
I stole that, not stolen. I was inspired by Futurama when they go back in the past and Fry is left alone for 2 hours and becomes his own grandpa.
Yeah,
I really wanted. I mean, I would have preferred that to this inexplicable. By the way, Palpatine had a clone.
There's a Tom Arnold song and dance from the Stupids that is now ringing in my head. Thanks, Brian.
I made a meme. I'll send it to you. But all told, I like seeing Leia use force powers. People make a lot of fun about Super Leia, but like I can't say this enough because people complain about it more than I think is necessary. When Leia is out in space and she flies back to the ship, all she's doing is a basic force pull. It's the same exact thing Luke did in Empire Strikes Back. But in Empire Strikes Back, he is attached to an immobile object and he's retrieving a lightsaber. In this, she's grabbing an immobile object, a starship, and pulling it towards her. Obviously, she's going to be the one that moves. And in what I have some issues with Rian Johnson, but the cinematography here, if you watch that scene again, when Leia flies back into the control room from space, in the wrecked control room, there is still a hologram of the Supremacy being displayed. And Leia flies directly through that hologram at the same impact point that Holdo splits the real one later on. It's a nice piece of foreshadowing. I have to think it was on purpose. But again, there's things to like in this film, but they are not few and far between, but there are less of them than I would have liked.
Yeah.
And I think we deserved more from the storyline. The movie requires that the audience do way too much homework. I don't care for a film that makes you read 3 comic books and a novel to make sense of it. And this one is at least at that much. And I just think that the merch for this was a little lackluster. Like they could have done a lot more with. I mean, I'm a 6-inch guy. Black Series everything, and let me see a full throne that I don't have to get off a 3D printer on Etsy. I would have been. There could have been a lot more, and then that brings me to my complaint that we still only have one Knight of Ren figure. Like, why? Look, they're objectively a group of people. You should have had a collective. So,
all right.
Anyway, but that said, I think the film got more flack than it deserves. The reviews that I was threatened with physical violence because I didn't dislike it to the correct extent in a Facebook group. Like literally, I was threatened with pretty explicit violence. Wish I was there so I could type language, because all I said was the analogy I use is ice cream. If I like chocolate, but I also like butter pecan, and you say that I'm gay and mentally deficient because I don't like chocolate, because I acknowledge that butter pecan is a flavor of ice cream, I think you're maybe a little bit too much into your ice cream. And I have heard those exact words because I said something like, it's an okay movie. Like I didn't care for it, but obviously people did. Watching the sequel trilogy reminds me of watching the prequel trilogy, and that I'm old enough to remember when everybody hated the prequel trilogy. Mm-hmm. And I'm also old enough to see people now who love it and romanticize it. There's a generation of Star Wars fans who will have grown up with the sequels being their first Star Wars movies. And in 20 years, there's going to be a trilogy of Star Wars that comes out that everybody who is now 12 is going to hate because it's not as good as the sequels.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's unfortunate, but I think that the sequels, maybe it's societal. I don't know if we can blame the movies, but I think that a real rift formed in the fandom over these movies. And I don't think it's entirely the fault of the films. I think it's a lot of the fault of social media, the way that people are now.
I think part of it's the social media. I think you're right there. But I also think that there is some of that toxicity comes from the studio, because over the last couple of years, even and I'll admit this, the whatever vitriol was aimed at Kelly Marie Tran was tragic. I like. I don't care for her as a character. I think she's kind of superfluous from a character perspective. But she offered. I mean, what I do like about it is that she offered kind of a humanitarian perspective for the story, and she would have been better suited as like a one-off character. Fine, but it was like there's been a lot of issues over the last couple of years with some of the other content coming out on Disney Plus, where the studio specifically told people that they cast, hey, be prepared for this. This one thing happened this one time. Be prepared for it. And it got stoked on social media long before the show ever came out.
One time, though, I don't know if Ahmed Best would agree with that.
Well,
or Jake Lloyd or Hayden Christensen.
Since Disney's run.
Yeah, okay.
What I'm getting at. And because like I feel like overall, I don't know, it's kind of it's kind of a weird thing. Like, for example, like I was in high school when episode 1 came out. I don't understand why people were so like hate-filled that they had to treat Ahmed Best with so much hatred. Like, he did a fine job. I just don't care for the character, and that doesn't reflect on him. It's just the character was obnoxious. That having been said, he did a great job with what he was given.
Yeah.
Okay. Especially for being the first digital character ever like that. Truly digital character. But like moving forward, I think the studio allowed for some things to be kind of put out prior to it's like, for example, with Kenobi and with the actress who played the Inquisitor, and the kind of grief that she was like, they primed her in advance saying, be prepared for a lot of racism.
Wait. Oh, okay, sure. Yeah. Well,
and I'm like, why? Why would you do that? Like, all you're doing is you're creating a self-fulfilling prophecy in which your actors are now going to be primed to expect that kind of behavior. And what they found was a lot of the people who were making those kinds of comments weren't even real accounts. They were bots. They were pre-programmed chat bots most of the time. And that was the sad thing behind it. Unless I'm misreading.
That reminds me. No, I've read that too. But that reminds me of during the Teen Titans live action show, they cast a woman of color as Starfire, and people went insane. Like, well, guys, there's not a lot of Tamaranians working in Hollywood right now. Like, you got to go with what you got.
Yeah.
And I think we saw the same thing with the casting of Rosario Dawson as Ahsoka. Like, so I mean, she's at least I don't know her full ethnicity, but she's Hispanic in some percentage.
Yeah.
And, again, there's not a lot of Togruta who are available to hire. So
right.
I think.
Well, I didn't really notice. I mean, I noticed some backlash with it, but most of the people that I saw with Rosario personally were pretty, thought it was a pretty good casting. If you're not going to get Ashley Eckstein.
Well, she was a fan cast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with you, Mark. I didn't see a lot of it, but I saw some of it.
Oh yeah, and you're gonna get that with anything. You're gonna get the hashtag not my whatever.
I admin on 2 different 35,000 plus Star Wars groups, so I see posts that don't make it to air. But I saw a good amount of that. But it was by the time Ahsoka was getting cast, a lot of that had kind of calmed down. But I mean, there was a time when I saw condescendingly and loudly people would post like, I don't mind if they cast minorities in these roles. Okay, thanks very much for your permission. But like, as long as it moves the story forward, what does it have to do with the story? Like, what does Luke, Han, and Leia all being white have to do with the story? It's not a factor. I saw an interesting post Chloe was a fan cast of Chloe Bennett, Dr. Aphra.
Yeah, I saw that just today, in fact.
And now I like Chloe Bennett; she does good work. But Aphra is very explicitly drawn as having Asian features.
Chloe Bennett's half Chinese.
I didn't know that.
Now you do, and knowing is half the
Well,
battle.
I'm a white guy. I'm a d-bag. What can I say? But I would Karen Fukuhara. I would be my fan cast. But that does, while I'm being a d-bag here, I'm going to innocently and with love say, what do you call someone who is Asian in Star Wars? Because there is not an Asia in Star Wars. I think I mentioned I really would have liked to have seen, like, I wish I was more of a filmmaker. I would have liked to have seen a racist Han joke when he first meets Finn and he says, "Black guy, huh? I knew a black guy. You know Lando." Because like I had a grandfather who was like that. You know, like if he met any ethnicity, he would mention the one member of that ethnicity he knew 40 years ago. We don't all know each other. Any rate, I think The Last Jedi got more grief than it deserves.
I don't know. Me as a white man, I can pretty much say that I know every white person.
Wait, you're white?
You know, okay. So while we're on the topic, I was a Navy recruiter, and I'm going to tell you, in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, white people do not join the Navy in great numbers. 78% of the 204 people I put in the Navy were not white. So I got to meet a lot of people that I wouldn't have otherwise. But at any rate, I do think The Last Jedi deserves some grief. I think if you watch it if it's your first Star Wars movie, I think it's a good movie. If it is your 8th Star Wars movie, you're probably going to be unhappy about it.
Yeah.
That's probably accurate.
Yeah.
Probably accurate.
The paradox that Lucasfilm and Disney had before them is this franchise has been around for just shy of 50 years, and there is no way that they can make a new movie that also comes out when the three of us are 12.
Yeah.
Well, I think there's also there's kind of a tension because you want to like I think fans would be a little bit more forgiving, like the fans who are grumpy about how things have played out over the last 12 years or whatever. I think fans would be a little bit more forgiving if the attitude towards the filmmaking process was, one, not so much about saturation, but about quality. Yeah. 2, is that what is being made now isn't being done to just give us glimpses of the nostalgia bait and the member berries that we've gotten in over the last few years. It's about honoring what came before while trying to do something new within that same spirit. And I feel like, and this is because of the way that Disney does things, the spirit has become one of beyond commercialization, beyond merchandising. I mean, last week we talked about merchandise gone wrong. Mm-hmm. This is a great example of the way that the market gets oversaturated, especially when Disney is you got the reins. Yeah. And I the other part of the problem is, like, having seen the interviews with George Lucas where he's like, "Hey, these are the things here are all my notebooks that I laid out for how I would recommend they go with." Kathleen Kennedy threw all that out. Like, she had an opportunity.
Yeah, but have you seen those notebooks?
No.
He went full Micronauts. He was going to have the heroes become microscopic and interact with midichlorians. There was some real garbage in there. Yeah. I mean, I make a joke, like, if you want to get thrown out of a convention, I think it'd be funny to pay for a George Lucas autograph and then be like, could you actually sign it, young George Lucas? Because I'm not a fan of your later work. But I mean, I do like the prequels. I enjoy them, but George Lucas's idea for the prequels was, let's have a whole lot of talk about politics and trade agreements. And by the way, we're going to introduce microorganisms that drive the Force. I think the midichlorians were a bad call, and he was doubling down on it from everything I've read. So, and also, not for nothing, I've said this before, Disney's not going to pay $2 billion for a franchise and then make a bunch of movies that could be spoiled for $3 at a used paperback store. Like this, they had to go in a different direction. Now, admittedly, and as I mentioned last week, they put a lot of really cool stuff behind really expensive gates, and I think that's why the Halcyon Star Cruiser failed. Like, they made a pretty good experience cost as much as a mid-sized sedan, and I think that you should have more to show for it than the opportunity to spend another couple $1,000s on souvenirs.
Right.
And anyway, that's another whole episode. I could go on about that, but yeah, you're right though. Disney's going to make a buck, but they're not infallible. That Star Cruiser didn't work out for them, and everybody who I know predicted that. They're like, this is too expensive. It's not enough. They put a lot into it, but they made it too expensive. They overestimated the appeal of living in that period of the Star Wars galaxy. I think if the Halcyon Star Cruiser took off in 3 BBY, I think that would have been a little more interesting. But like, the people who
the crowd in.
Yeah, the people who were interested in investing in that level of experience did not want to interact with the First Order and Rey.
No.
Right.
Well,
this was a good one. Thanks for letting me vent. This has been fun. I really
tell us how you really feel, Brian.
I watched the movie twice since last week, so I'm primed. I've been ready to go. I'm getting caught up on Mandalorian season 3. I'm warming up for it's Star Wars time, man. I'm mad I missed Celebration Japan, but I have a child and a mortgage, so no chance to go out there this time. But we'll be out there in LA 27.
Yeah, and hey, if you guys want to crowdfund us, we would gladly take your money.
Brian, Garrett, or Mark will make your outgoing voicemail message.
Hey, we do have a Ko-fi.com.
Yes.
Do you guys remember when that was a big deal? Like on NPR's Wait, Don't Tell Me. That was one of the prizes. Was one of the announcers would make your outgoing voicemail message. I will do a Carl Castle impression.
Jeez.
I'm not gonna plug them because I don't have permission. But there is a podcast run by friends of mine who their opening blurb is me as Palpatine welcoming viewers to the show. So if you want Palpatine to do your outgoing voicemail message, send $5 to the Ko-fi address. Anyway. I
never get hired.
I'm looking forward to the review of The Rise of Skywalker because I got more to say about that because there's more Palpatine in that one.
That'll be next month.
I made a chart of how much I like each Star Wars movie, like rating them, and it is just a ranking of minutes that Ian McDiarmid is on screen. And I don't call it out specifically, but like I took a chart of how many minutes Ian McDiarmid is on screen in each movie. So like my least favorite is Episode 4. I even made a fake
at all.
I made a fake poster for that where it says Star Wars Episode 4: The Search for Palpatine. Do you remember back to The Simpsons? Do you remember when they introduced Poochie?
Yeah.
So Homer's pitch was whenever Poochie's not on screen, all the characters should be wondering where Poochie is. And I may have mentioned once or twice, but I wrote a Palpatine rap where I claim as Palpatine, I'm so bad, I'm the bad guy of things I'm not in. Anyway, I'm out. Come see me on Facebook at the Sith Library and Archives. I post as Darth Corosis. We have a great collection of art and culture there, run by some loving admins. We have a great time out there. About 50,000 people followed us. No big deal. You should be one of them. Great talking with you guys again, and we'll see you folks back in our Star Wars.
Yeah. All right. So next week, we are going to be doing something different since we have fifth Wednesday in the month of April. We are going to be doing a War of the Stars Q&A. Get your questions in. You can connect with us on our Instagram and Twitter feeds, or X feeds, and you should ask the questions. I've gotten a few questions that have come in on Instagram, so we'll have something for next week. But get some more in. There's still time between now and next week when we record. But yeah, that's going to be a fun episode. Oh no! Don't start yawning, because if you start yawning, I'm going to start yawning. If I start yawning, I'm going to fall asleep.
Well, before that happens, why don't you tell the people out there where they can find you at?
Yes. Well, you guys can find me on Instagram and X at GKJ_publishing, where I talk about my books, The Archives of Asim Ran. This right here is the first book in the series. It's called The Heirs of Menenias. It is an awesome starter to whet your appetite for fantasy. It's got dragons, elves, magic, vampires that don't sparkle. I also have a new... What?
I said, oh my.
Oh, you said, oh my. I also have a new anthology of collected short stories called Midnight Playground that came out 2 months ago. That one's doing really well. And I'd love to get some more readers on that one. That's got a little mix of everything. You can also find me on YouTube doing a show called The Right Way, where we talk book recommendations, author interviews, and creative writing tips. And then I'm also on another podcast for Feast of Fandoms called Snackame. We have a new episode coming out this Saturday on Alien Day, because we're going to be reviewing and talking about Alien Monday, a 20-minute animated short on YouTube.
All right. Well, as for us right here, if you want to get a hold of us, there's several ways you can do that. You can email us, warofthestars1@gmail.com, or you can check us out on our social media. It is all under War of the Stars 77. That is on Instagram, X, and YouTube. Check us out there. If you want to support the show, as we mentioned earlier, you can do so at ko-fi.com. That is ko-i.com/War of the Stars. That is all one word. Or you can go to our Spreadshirt shop. That is spreadshirt.com/shop/war-of-the-stars- to check that out. We are, of course, as Garrett also mentioned, a proud member of Feast of Fandoms. Check out all the shows of Feast of Fandoms. And yeah, there's a lot of good shows on there. Check them out. You can, yeah, I don't know what I was going to say there. Of course, we're glad to have you. Hope you join us next week. As always, remember, this is not just my Star Wars. This is not just your Star Wars. This is our Star Wars. Until next time, may the Force be with you.